Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my two special guests. They are the authors of the book I Am Pink, no other than Mr. Gregory Kaplow and Miss Dani Forrest. Welcome to Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, Danny, you're the lady of the house. Why don't you go first?
Okay. My name is Dani Forrest. I am a grateful co-author of I Am Pink with my dear friend Gregory Kaplow. And I am a truth teller on all sorts of social media platforms, including generational truths, spiritual truths, and just connecting people in an increasingly challenging world, shall we say.
That's so true. So true. Awesome. Thank you, Danny. My name is Gregory Kaplow. I am the CEO of Stir Up the Paint in Seattle. It is a paint and sip business where a master artist walks you through a painting during a 2-hour event and you take home your masterpiece. So I run about 30 events a month in Seattle. We're also a national company, so I do events also in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, and we're also expanding into more states as we speak. I worked in Hollywood for 25 years. My last position was director of special events for Sony Pictures Entertainment. It was a wild ride, very stressful and crazy and fun all at the same time. And I'm in Seattle now. I'm enjoying a different pace of life, and I'm not in the frying pan and the pressure cooker, and I'm enjoying that. I'm working on my third book right now, which is a children's book, all ages children's book, like a Kobe Yamada style. You can look up Kobe Yamada, like really incredible illustrations with more of a thought-provoking spiritual element to the books. We're hoping it, will resonate in a generation. I think we all need some spiritual food.
Miss Dani and Mr. Gregory, thank you so much for sharing your award-winning piece to the world. I Am Pink. I Am Pink is a powerful declaration. Beyond the color, what does pink fundamentally represent in the context of your identity and this book?
I'll always let Dani go first, and then I'll follow up with her. Dani, go ahead.
I just wanted to rephrase your question so I understand it. It's the meaning of pink as a theme, as a name.
Yes, of your book.
Well, when I think of the color pink, I associate it with the heart area of the body, and also that newness that comes when we dare to shed old skins, old stories, old narratives that don't work for us. And when we do that shedding, and I know when I've gone through transformations, what gets revealed underneath is pink because it's new, but also because it's tender and because it's vulnerable. And so this tale ties in with the courage that it takes, not just to unpeel the old, but to live with the rawness of the new.
Yeah, I mean, pink is really pink, being pink, even though that's the main character's name too. And he gets that name basically because he's on the beach and this woman walks by him and he's sunburned. And so she goes pink and she kind of walks away. But a deeper meaning, I think it fools a lot of people because they immediately think of color. They might think of feminine. They might think of, that maybe it's an LGBTQ, but it's relatable in all those realms. But it is really about being raw and vulnerable and uncomfortable and getting rid of this thing that, existed in our life. We're on a new path. It's transformation. So being pink is like, becoming, your new self, going from that raw vulnerability into your transformative new journey, whatever that may be.
I Am Pink. Very well said. Beautifully articulated. What pivotal moment or realization sparked the journey of writing I Am Pink? Was there a specific experience that made this declaration necessary?
Well, for me, it was a very sacred co-authoring experience. And, Gregory and I worked very harmoniously together. And, I can't speak to his direct experience of that, but the power to me was working on that. That there are several compelling characters in there. There's sort of a sage or a wise teacher by the name of Erica. There's the main character, Pink, who is caught between a very worldly existence and then one that feels more authentic to him. There's also another female character who is struggling with some very real trauma and vulnerability, as well as some wise indigenous peoples who are helping to sort of carry the energy of that journey that Pink is on. And so when I was working on that, I really realized that each of those characters lives in me, and I could speak. I felt really authentically from each of their perspectives because I knew what it was to feel like each of them at different points in my lived experience.
Yeah, very well said, Dani. And for me, it was critical during a time in which I felt an extra amount of brokenness and just uncertainty. I felt like the world needed to see and feel something else that told them that it was okay to pivot in a different direction and experience something new, even if we didn't have all the answers and we didn't know how it was going to be laid out, and we didn't know if we were going to be monetarily, compensated for it, or if it, was aligned with us. There were so many unanswered questions, but it was still okay to do it. And it was still okay to find yourself within it. And it was still okay to try. And I think for me, I felt like we were all trapped in this chaos of uncertainty and insecurity. And I wanted people to understand that, those things in life on earth are temporary. We're living a very temporary existence. Nothing is permanent. And I think we have to jump off the cliff and scream and have a great ride. I was telling you earlier, I think a lot of us flatline. We do this formula thing. We go to school or college, and we get a partner, and we get a house, and we're told all of these things we're supposed to do will bring us happiness. This is what you do on the planet. And you go to dinner parties and you share that information with other people and you connect, and it's all great. And for some people it's great, but for most people it's not great. And they feel very unfulfilled within it. And they've never sat down and thought, well, what if, at 60, they're like, oh, it's too late. If you get anything out of this podcast today, the one thing I want you to get is it's never too late. I've seen people in their 70s and their 80s and their 90s pivot and do something different. And look at Susan Boyle's a really great example, don't you think? She came into herself when? I mean, way late. It's a really good example. Let's look at Susan Boyle and kind of like say, hey, I think the thing is, why can't that be me? I think we don't believe that can be us. And you have to believe, you have to take action. There's a lot of things within that, but we have to try. So let's have the courage and the bravery and the vulnerability to try, please. That's really why I wrote this book. Really, I just want people to try something new and try to grab a little bit more joy. It's really what I want.
How does claiming pink challenge traditional labels, stereotypes, or societal expectations you've encountered?
Well, I think that Greg's touched on a little bit of this. When you hear the word pink, there's a lot of, associations with that, breast cancer awareness, LGBTQ community, gender and sexual fluidity and a blurring of boundaries, baby girls versus baby boys. So right there off the bat, the name of that book really challenges people's expectations. And I mean, on a larger scale, it really, like Greg was saying before, it challenges us on the stories that society tells us and what we tell ourselves about who it is we are. When I was talking before about the different people that I felt that I could occupy, the different characters while I was writing, those things, those different personas, those different facets of ourselves live together, and we're not called upon to be one or the other. We're all of them. Sometimes one will step on stage into the spotlight and the other part of our character will step back a little bit, but it's a dance that we are all doing with various aspects of ourselves, and it's very hard to embrace that, to honor it in ourselves and in other people, when the world is always asking us, it's the first thing you hear when you go into a party or you go to a function. What do you do? Well, what do I do? I exist. I'm a very imperfect person having an imperfect experience and wanting to learn and grow and connect meaningfully. But even at these very small types of, interactions, let alone what society asks us, we have to be compartmentalized and we have to do one thing versus another. And we're not allowed to, like Greg said, to pivot, to experiment fearlessly, to try new ideas and to see, maybe failure or see, in not being validated as feedback as to what we can do next or how we can really more authentically own what it is we're doing. So I think Pink is a really fantastic springboard for that kind of exploration personally and societally.
Yeah, I mean, it's way outside the box societally. It's just because it's telling you not to follow the formula. It's telling you to look at yourself, to design your own path. It's asking you to be creative enough and courageous enough to look at that and then go and do it, even if you don't know what's going to happen within it. If you're going to be compensated within it, if you're going to survive within it, if you're going to be successful within it. All of these things seem to be important with us, or important to us. But the thing is that it stops us from trying. It stops us from going down the path because we're so afraid of, oh, well, I don't believe, I can do that. I use an analogy when I speak sometimes about you die and you go to this place and there's this being that comes out and it says, well, hello, Susan, how are you? And she's, oh, I'm fine. She says, oh, great. Well, we noticed you were an accountant all your life and that's really great. You had this great life, but what happened to the sewing thing? And Susan says, oh, I loved sewing. That really was my passion, but I didn't believe, I could, be financially stable within that or find sustenance within that. So I didn't follow that. And the being says, oh, that's interesting, Susan. Well, if you would have followed that and you would have trusted, this is what your life would have been like. And the being presses play. And then Susan gets to sit there and watch what her life would have been. And she ended up like winning an Academy Award as a costume designer. And she gets to watch all that. That's painful, but that's the reality. That's the truth when we don't try.
Writing such a personal declaration requires immense vulnerability. How did you balance sharing your authentic self with the fear of judgment? And what did you discover about your own strength in the process?
Well, that journey was made very, I don't want to say easy, but a lot more. I could dare a little bit more. I could have a little more courage because of walking this path with Greg. I was working on my own book at the time, which I had been working on for a long time. And then, Pink showed up in my inbox from Greg as a draft, as an idea. And it gave me the courage to treat writing as an experiment that didn't have to, quote unquote, succeed, that it could just be a connection with my own truth and a breaking up of my own limitations in doing that creative work and in the story itself, so that maybe other people as well would see something in it. It was a very vulnerable time in my life when I was working on, and when Greg gave me this gift, I was really wanting to pursue more creativity and more authenticity, but I wasn't quite sure how to do that, especially coming out of both the pandemic and a relatively recent loss of my late husband. I was just not doing very well and not really finding a roadmap with really how to navigate forward. And Pink was that. And the ironic part of that is that I read the first, rough draft of Greg's idea when I was actually in Kauai, where a lot of the book takes place. And I've been to Kauai many times. It's my happy place, and I usually have very spiritual experiences there, but I was not having a spiritual experience at the time. I was, traveling with some very, lovely people, but they were very worldly, and they were more interested in, where they were going to be playing golf or eating. And I just wanted to experience the beauty of that place. And then when I sat on the patio of my condo that we were in, reading what Greg had sent me, it activated a signal from beyond, which is, this is the work that you need to be doing, and don't worry if you're perfect, because you have no other alternative at this time but to try. And trying is just as much doing as the polished version of anything in life. Just showing up on the page, showing up for the canvas, showing up on the date, just showing up and trusting that, like our book says, the universe has the details.
Yeah. I think for me, it would have been a lot harder to be vulnerable and to understand what the vulnerability was and to get in touch with that if I was doing it alone. And every time I would write something alone, I had somebody to share it with that could take it to the next level or could see it in a different light through her own pain and vulnerability. And it would come back to me different. And I, weirdly enough, every time Dani sent something back to me, I know this is going to sound strange, I always loved it. Even if it was a complete rewrite of an ending, it was really twisted and different, I always loved it. Because there's something about having the pain and the vulnerability and the uncomfortability within yourself, and then having another person that you feel is your soulmate to be able to bounce that off of. And she's able to take it. She has a deep-seated pain and vulnerability of her own that I can't see. And we got to share that together. It makes the book richer and I think so much better, so much bigger offering.
Richer indeed. That's why you won that award. And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
As an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, I'm a very one day at a time person, given everything that goes on. Life is always in session. So I have learned to pivot sometimes on a dime. And that saying that God laughs while we plan, I think, is something that we've all more or less had to take to heart during these very challenging times that we're in. Long-term goals, my creativity is absolutely my number one priority for a healthy and for a meaningful, authentic life. So I am working, I published the book that I was originally working on. It was published after Pink. It's called 52 Pickup, Life in Perfect Disorder, which is a memoir. I'm also working on my third book called Sargasso, which is a reflection and meditation on the journey that I took while, caring for my late husband. It was a 1-year journey of his illness and passing, which is designed for people that have maybe gone through that and have feelings after that of, did I do it right? I'm not medically trained. Did I do the best I could caring for someone I loved, but, quote unquote, failing because that person, I lost them. So that's what that is for. Plus I continue to post content on social media that has to do with awareness of where we all are as a species, as a nation, as a global community, based on what our generation is, based on the different traumas that we experience, as participants in this very strange game that we're in on Earth. So my long-term goals, loosely, and it can only be loose at this point, is to always keep creating and to show up as real as I can, and to allow for the fact that sometimes that showing up is going to be, well, not sometimes, it's always imperfect, but it's going to be messy, it's going to be artless, but to keep growing through creating. That is my manifesto right now.
Nice. And I'm going to continue to expand Stir Up the Paint. As I was telling you earlier, I'm going to expand it nationally in more cities. But I think inevitably the business, I run it a little different than a regular paint and sip because it has a a spiritual kind of life coach component to it. Why are you feeling anxiety? Why are you afraid to paint the canvas black? Be kind to yourself. Leave the stuff outside the door. These 2 hours, we're going to be supportive and love each other and be kind. So it has all of those elements within it. But I think really what it's telling me is that you want to continue to create and inspire. And I think with future books and expanding the business and, Stir Up the Paint is my baby. I think the message I keep getting is that, you want to inspire. It's important for you to inspire. It's important to be inspired. But I think my long-term goals are just, to continue to share a little bit of love and a little bit of wisdom. And hopefully, I grow and be a little wiser myself.
Good luck to your goals and looking forward for more and more and more success and hoping for more empowering books like this as an award-winning piece. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too, comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in its 5th season as well, geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101 love letters in a 4th season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101 and my science 101 and sex 101 in each 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. For someone inspired by your book, what's one concrete actionable step they can take today?
They can go to Amazon. We have the book in paperback, in hardback, and also on Audible. So you can listen to the audiobook as well. Dani and I both recorded it with her partner, who is Don Cromwell. Wonderful. We recorded in his studio. Very, very kind and wonderful man. It's all over. It's all over. It's in Target, Barnes and Noble. But Amazon's probably the easiest place for everybody, since so many people spend so much time on Amazon. You just put in Koplo, I Am Pink, or I Am Pink, and it should pop up, and you can purchase it there. Or Audible too. It was really, it's very emotive. It's very emotive to listen to it. A lot of people like to pick up a book and read it, but I enjoy doing the audio version. There's stuff that's translated into Hawaiian when I'm on top of a cliff and I'm chanting, and you learn a lot about spirituality and lots of things within the book. But I think when you are leaning your voice and your heart into it adds to it. I think it makes it more flavorful.
Yes, makes sense, Mr. Gregory. Indeed, totally empowering book. I Am Pink. What was been the most surprising or impactful reaction you've received from reader about how I Am Pink affected them?
All of the reactions were really pretty shocking, because we weren't sure if people were really going to understand it and digest it. But they did. A lot of people said that it changed their direction, which was really important. It changed their direction in life, and they were more willing to look at why they were in a specific place and what they could do to try maybe to get out of that space. A lot of people just felt comforted knowing that they're okay being who they are, just showing up each day, and you don't have to have more than that to be successful and to be a good person on the planet. And I think it gave people permission to try to do other things and to accept themselves for who they are. It's kind of like a mirror. So we got a lot of that feedback, but a lot of people said it was hard to put down, that it changed their life. One person said, this was really pierced my heart. I think I cried. Person said, this is a soul document. I was like,
a soul document, indeed.
I was like, wow, like you understood that. That was pretty amazing.
Did writing the book clarify or even change your own understanding of what I Am Pink means, or if so, how?
Can you say that again? I'm not really sure where I want to go with that.
Yes, did writing the book clarify or even change your own understanding of what I am pink means?
Yeah, I think, as you write it, it evolves. And I think originally the vulnerability wasn't there. And then, with the help of Dani and kind of connecting with her, the pink became stronger and showed up bigger and more vulnerable and more vibrant. And then eventually we started to break it down in the book and talk about pink being raw and tender and fresh, like a wound that's just kind of like, healing, that it's healing and it's becoming something new, like a cocoon to a butterfly type thing. So, the book takes you on a journey, really. I mean, I don't think you take the book on a journey. I think it takes you on a journey. It allows you to, if you're listening to the messages, it allows you to understand things that maybe you didn't understand before about yourself, because you're just sort of vomiting it all out and then you're organizing it. And then there's other stuff, other messages that you get from the universe or beyond. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's sort of divine intervention that intercedes and gives life to something that you felt you didn't have inside of you. And that happened a lot with this book.
Mr. Gregory Kaplow and Ms. Dani Forrest, thank you so much for sharing I Am Pink to the World award-winning piece. So can you please invite our listeners to support your books as well as your advocacy or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I have The Art of Being Whole, which is my first book. It's a memoir. I Am Pink. Dani's got 52 Card Pickup. She mentioned the other book she's working on, and then I've got the third book coming out. It's called Joy of the Journey. So
the joy of the journey.
Yeah, so we're excited about all of that, and we're going to continue to create and to inspire, and until we're not here anymore, whenever that may be. God bless us.
A legacy indeed, and we salute you for doing that, Mr. Gregory, and hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So people, let's support Mr. Gregory Kaplow and Ms. Dani Forrest, because if you support them, for sure more and more and more award-winning books to come, award-winning advocacy, and a lot more. So, Mr. Gregory, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. It was a pleasure going on this journey with you. I hope we can do it again. Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.